We're going to discuss metallurgy from Science 1. If you have your textbooks, please open them. Anyone has any particular question about metallurgy before we begin? Okay. So we've already gone through this chapter, if I'm not mistaken. Before we start anything, I want you guys to know that as of this moment, your exams are postponed. They have been postponed to first week of June, but we don't have any sure assurance. So unless we get some information, we will assume that the exams will happen and we will study for those exams. Okay. So let's start with this. Now, in metallurgy, we know that everything that is there on this earth is an element, and the element are divided into three basic states. Now, the states are, they can be either solid, liquid, or gaseous. And even though there are three states, they are also classified according to their chemical and physical properties, which can divide them as metals, non-metals, and as metalloids. Now, as far as metals goes, they are usually in solid state, and there are some metals that are in liquid state at room temperature, like mercury and gallium. One of the classifications or characteristic of metals are that they have luster, and this luster decreases when there is exposure to atmospheric oxygen and moisture, and it also decreases when they are present in some reactive gases. Reactive gases means gases that react with those metals, that can reduce the luster of those metals. We also know that metals have properties like ductility and malleability, and all metals are good conductors of heat and electricity. Now, there's also one thing that you need to know, that all metals are usually hard, and the only exception is to the alkali metals that are in group 1, like lithium, sodium, and potassium. These metals are not hard, and they can be cut with a simple knife as well. Now, metals also have high melting and boiling points. So, for example, tungsten has a high melting point of 3,422 degrees. And there are some metals like sodium, potassium, mercury, and gallium, which have a very low melting and boiling points. And that is why they are either soft or in liquid state in the room temperature. Metals are also sonorous. Sonorous means they create a sound when you hit them with something, and that is called the sonority of metals. Any questions so far? Now, when you discuss the physical properties of nonmetals, you would know that nonmetals are in solid state, but some can also be in gaseous state. There is a nonmetal bromine, which is in liquid state. Nonmetals do not have any luster, which means that they are not shiny. The only exception to that is iodine, which is shiny. Nonmetals are also not hard. The exception to not being hard is diamond, which is an allotrope of carbon, and it's the hardest natural substance that is found. Nonmetals have usually low melting point and low boiling points, and they are bad conductors of electricity and heat. The only exception to that is graphite, which is an allotrope of carbon, and it is a good conductor of electricity. Okay? Any questions so far? I'll keep on asking that, because if you have a question, it's important that we discuss it right away. We are trying to revise. I'm not going to go through each and everything. So if you have a question, please ask me. So now we are coming to the chemical properties of metals. Now metals are reactive. They would lose their electrons very easily, and they can become positively charged ions, and that is why they are called as electropositive elements. Now this is very important to understand, people. What do you think is electropositive element, and what do you mean by losing electrons? So I'll tell you something. Now, this is not only for metals, but this is for all elements. Whenever an element loses an electron, it becomes positively charged. You might think why. So I'll explain it to you why. Now, all of you know that the number of protons, excuse me, that the number of protons in an element, protons and neutrons, is always equal to the number of electrons. So when an element loses one of its electron, the amount of positive energy increases because the protons are still there, right? So when an element loses an electron, it becomes positively charged. And such an element will be denoted by writing plus VE at the top. So you know that element is positively charged now. And how did that become positively charged? By losing an electron. Similarly, when an element takes an electron, it becomes negatively charged. And that is how cation and anions are formed. Any questions on this? Okay. Now there is an experiment here. It says it is showing combustion of metal. It says how quickly a metal catches fire. Now you have samples of aluminium, copper, iron, lead, magnesium, zinc, and sodium. Some of these elements will quickly catch fire, some will not. Like sodium will itself catch fire, so it's a very highly reactive metal. So when we do this experiment, you will realize that sodium is the one that catches fire almost immediately. And the color of the metal will change because of the oxidization that happens. And that exactly is what is shown here. That is reaction of metals with oxygen. Now metals combine with oxygen on heating in air and metal oxides are formed. Sodium and potassium are very reactive metals. Sodium metal combines with oxygen in the air even at room temperature and forms sodium oxide. And that is why sodium is combustible. It catches fire almost immediately. And when that happens, you get sodium oxide. So it says on exposure to air, sodium readily catches fire. Now, how many of you have seen sodium in your life? If you have, you would have seen that sodium is not kept openly. Sodium is kept within kerosene so that it does not catch fire immediately. And that is why it's always kept under kerosene, because the moment you take sodium out of kerosene, it will catch fire immediately. Now, some of the oxides of metals are also soluble in water. And when they mix with water, they form an alkali. And alkali means a base. Like sodium oxide with H2O will give you sodium hydroxide. We also know magnesium oxide is formed on burning magnesium ribbon in the air. Magnesium oxide reacts with water to form an alkali called magnesium hydroxide. So when you burn magnesium with oxygen, in front of oxygen, you get magnesium oxide. And when you mix it with water, you get magnesium hydroxide. Okay. Any questions on this? Okay. Now it also says that some metal will react with water immediately and they will release hydrogen gas. Like sodium water will give you sodium hydroxide and hydrogen gas and heat is released. Similarly, potassium with the water will give you potassium hydroxide with hydrogen releasing as well as heat. Now, on the other hand, calcium will not react so quickly. Hydrogen will release and it will get collected on the surface in the form of bubbles and the metal will float on water. So calcium with water will give you calcium hydroxide in an aqueous form and hydrogen gas will be released. Metals do not react with hot or cold water, but they will react with steam to form oxides and hydrogen gas is released. So aluminum, iron and zinc will not react with normal water. They will react with steam. So when you have aluminum with water, aluminum as a solid and water as gaseous, you'll get alumina plus hydrogen is released. Ferrous with water, you'll get ferrous oxide and hydrogen will be released. Zinc with water will give you zinc oxide and hydrogen will be released. And there is an experiment that shows that. Please go through all the experiments. You may get these questions in the exam. Any questions so far? Okay. Please stay muted, everyone. I don't want anyone to be on unmute unless you have a question or a point to say. If you have a question, please speak. Now, what happens when metal is reacted with oxygen? Now, in front of what happens when there is some kind of an acid added? Now, we know that aluminium, magnesium, iron, and zinc, when they are treated with sulfuric or hydraulic acid, sulfate or chloride salts of metals are formed and hydrogen gas is released. And that can happen, the reactivity is highest at the top and it keeps on going below. So the most reactive is magnesium, then aluminium, then zinc, then ferrous, that is iron. In every case, what you see is hydrogen gas is released. So magnesium with hydrochloride give you magnesium chloride, aluminium with hydrochloride give you aluminium chloride, iron with hydrochloride will give you ferrous chloride, zinc with hydrochloride will give you zinc chloride. Okay. Now coming to reaction of metals with nitric acid. Salts of metals are formed when metals are reacted with nitric acid. There are various oxides of nitrogen, nitrous oxide, nitric oxide, nitrite oxide, and all of these when they interact with a metal, like let's say copper, you will get copper nitrate plus nitrogen oxide plus water, or you will get copper nitric plus nitrogen plus nitric oxide plus water. Now coming to aqua regia. Aqua regia is a very highly corrosive and fumic liquid. It's a reagent that can dissolve even noble metals like gold and platinum. And it is mixed by concentrated hydraulic acid and concentrated nitric acid in the ratio 3:1. Last year, there was a question on aqua regia. So please make sure you go through this, okay? Now, this one experiment is there, which we have all, done in class as well. What happens to a nail in a copper sulfate solution and in a ferrous sulfate solution? You do see that metal reacts. You've already seen this experiment yourself, so I'm not going to go through that. Any questions so far? Now, coming to the reactivity series of metals. We all know that not all metals react same. We also know that the reagents oxygen, water, and acid are not useful to determine the relative reactivity, and displacement of salts do not serve this purpose. So how do we know that which metal is more reactive? And for this, there is a reactivity series that has been developed by scientists using the displacement reaction. Now, what is a displacement reaction? They see how much a metal will react, and then they have divided, let's say potassium, sodium, lithium, and calcium will even react with water. Magnesium, aluminium, zinc, iron, tin, lead will react with acids. Copper, mercury, and silver will react with oxygen. And gold will only react with aqua regia. Platinum will only react with aqua regia, which means that the highest reactivity is with those that react with water itself. And the lowest reactivity is that only reacts with aqua regia. Okay. Now coming to those metals that react with non-metals. So noble gases like helium, neon, and argon, they do not take part in chemical reactions. Now, can anyone tell me why they don't react with, why they don't take part in chemical reactions? Noble gases like helium, neon, and argon. Does anybody know the answer? Why they don't? Yes.
Sir, because their octet is full. Their octet is full.
Because their octet is
They have a
full.
complete octet.
Absolutely right, Karan.
Yes.
Since noble gases like helium, neon, and argon don't have any valency because their octets, or in the case of helium, even its K shell is full. So they don't have the capability to react with any other element. I have already told this in the class that any element can only react when they have either a valency, wherein they can take an electron, give an electron, or share an electron. If some element does not have a valency, like the noble gases, then they will not take part in chemical reactions. Absolutely right, Karan. Good job. Now we've seen a reaction of metals that cations are formed by oxidation of metals. We can see the electronic configuration and we will realize that every element that makes a reaction wants to attain the electronic configuration of the nearest noble gas. Like hydrogen has only one electron. So it has a valency of 1. The nearest noble gas to hydrogen, the nearest noble gas element to hydrogen is helium, which has a octet of 2. So in this case, hydrogen will share an electron with another hydrogen atom and make a molecule that has 2 valency, which will make it as helium. Yes, Zakin, you have a question? Zakin, you've raised your hand. You have a question?
नो सर, वो मिस्टेक से हो गया.
ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं. So the whole point or the whole reason why chemicals make or why chemicals are reacting in a chemical reaction is because they want to achieve the electronic configuration of the nearest noble gas. जैसे मैंने आप लोगों को क्लास में बोला था ना कि हर एक एलिमेंट कुछ बनना चाहता है, वो परफेक्ट होना चाहता है. और परफेक्ट कैसे होगा? जब उसका ऑक्टेट पूरा होगा. And that is only possible when it either takes an electron, gives an electron, or shares an electron. ठीक है? So metals either lose electrons, metals will lose electrons, become electropositive, that is become cation, and they will reach the noble gas ka electronic configuration nearest to them. Or non-metals will take electrons, become anions, which means become negatively charged, and then they will reach the nearest electronic configuration of the nearest noble gas. Okay. Now, because noble gases have complete octet, they are chemically inert. Inert means they are non-reactive. They will not react with any other chemical because they don't need to. And that is why they are called noble gases. So the word noble is that is by use because they are not getting involved into any chemical reaction. ठीक है, वो लोग राजा लोगों के जैसे हैं, उनको छोटी मोटी चीजों में पढ़ना नहीं है. आम लोग लड़ लड़ के आगे बढ़ना चाहते हैं, राजा बनना चाहते हैं, लेकिन राजा पहले से ही राजा ही है. All right. Now we've seen that the ionic compound sodium chloride is formed when sodium metal gives away 1 electron while the non-metal chlorine takes up 1 electron. So sodium becomes positively charged, chlorine becomes negatively charged, and the compound that is created is a ionic compound. Why is it called an ionic compound? Because ions are taken and given and then they balance each other. साथ में मिलके वो लोग equal हो जाते हैं. उसी तरह मैग्नीशियम और पोटेशियम का भी आयोनिक फॉर्म बॉन्ड फॉर्म होता है, मैग्नीशियम क्लोराइड और पोटेशियम क्लोराइड. ठीक है, कोई क्वेश्चन इसके ऊपर? ओके. Non-metals are a collection of elements having less similarity in physical and chemical properties. इनके आपस में similarities बहुत कम होती हैं. इनको इलेक्ट्रोनेगेटिव एलिमेंट्स कहते हैं क्योंकि ये नेगेटिवली चार्ज आयंस बनते हैं इलेक्ट्रॉन एक्सेप्ट करके. हम लोग ऑलरेडी डिस्कस कर चुके हैं. मेटल्स जो हैं वो पॉजिटिवली चार्ज आयंस बनते हैं इलेक्ट्रॉन दे के, और नॉन मेटल जो है वो नेगेटिवली चार्ज आयंस बनते हैं इलेक्ट्रॉन एक्सेप्ट करके. इनके एग्जांपल्स हैं जैसे कार्बन और ऑक्सीजन मिलकर कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड बनता है, तो कार्बन और इसका ऑक्सीजन का पार्शियल कंबोशन होगा तो कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड बनता है. सोडियम और नॉट सोडियम, सल्फर और ऑक्सीजन का रिएक्शन होता है तो सल्फर ऑक्साइड बनता है. तो ये सारी चीजें जो हैं ये नॉन मेटल्स के इंटरेक्शन से होती हैं. Now, what happens when non-metals react with water? Usually they don't unless they are an halogen. So chlorine dissolving in water will give you HOCl. So hydrogen, oxygen, chlorine. What is this called? Can anyone tell me? What is HOCl called? It's not hydrochloride. Come on, tell me, anyone. What is HOCl called? Nobody? So HCl is hydrochloride. Everyone knows that, right? Wherein you have hydrogen and chlorine coming together. Can nobody tell me what is hydrochloride? Okay.
So hydroxide chlorine chloride होता है.
Hydro
Hydroxide chloride.
hydroxide chloride. No, but you are close. You are very close.
Hydroxychloride.
So okay, let's take it this way.
Hydroxychloride.
It is hypochlorous acid. What is it? Hypochlorous acid. And it is formed when hydroxydochlorine and the chloric acid is mixed. Okay. So the other name that is for it is hydroxydochlorine.
Okay.
Right. Can everyone go back to mute, please? Now coming to reaction of dilute acids with non-metals. So non-metals do not react with dilute acids, and only exception to this is also chlorine. So when chlorine reacts with hydrobromic acid, you get hydrochloric and bromine is separated. Okay. Now what happens when they are reacted with hydrogen? They will react only when there is a certain condition like proper temperature, pressure and all. And in this case, chlorine and hydrobromine transformation happens wherein hydrobromine converts into bromine, and that's actually an oxidation that occurs. Now sulfur plus hydrogen will give you hydrosulfur, and nitrogen plus hydrogen will give you 2-nitrohydric acid. Okay? Now coming to ionic compounds. I've already told you about this. The compounds that are cation or anion are called ionic compounds, and they are oppositely charged. Because they are oppositely charged, obviously they will attract each other, and this force of attraction is called an ionic bond. Now the number of cations and anions in a compound and the magnitude of electric charge that is there in them, that balances each other. So like in the case of sodium and chloride, we all know that sodium gives 1 electron and chlorine takes 1 electron, and that is why they balance each other. Now these compounds in physical surface are crystalline in nature. Everyone knows what's a crystal. So they are crystalline in nature, and the surface of all the particles of a crystalline substance have a definite shape, which means that they are not non-shaped. They actually have a shape. They are smooth and shiny. And the reason why this happens is because ions are arranged in a particular way, which is the reason of their crystalline nature, why they are actually in a form of a crystal. Now ions are arranged differently in different ionic compounds, and therefore the shapes of their crystals are also different. So obviously different elements will have a different shape, and that happens because of the arrangement. किस तरह से वो ionic compound arrange किया गया है, और ये सारी चीजें जो हैं डिपेंड करती है कि क्या attractive force है और क्या repulsive force है उन ions के बीच में. क्योंकि इसमें नेगेटिव आयंस पॉजिटिव आयन के चारों तरफ रखते हैं और पॉजिटिव आयंस नेगेटिव आयंस के चारों तरफ रखते हैं, तो इसमें दो चीजें इंपॉर्टेंट होती है, क्या साइज है और क्या मैग्नीट्यूड है, यानी कितना उसका इलेक्ट्रिक चार्ज कितना ज्यादा है. अभी आप सबको पता है इलेक्ट्रिक चार्ज जो है वो प्रोटॉन्स और न्यूट्रॉन्स से आता है, मतलब कितने ज्यादा प्रोटॉन्स और न्यूट्रॉन्स हैं उसके ऊपर से उसका इलेक्ट्रिक चार्ज है, और नेगेटिव और पॉजिटिव आयंस को किस तरह से अरेंज किया गया है. ठीक है. एक और चीज आप समझिए, क्योंकि इनके ये अंदर से बैलेंस्ड हैं और इनके नेगेटिव आयंस जो हैं ऑपोजिट पॉजिटिव आयंस को अट्रैक्ट करते हैं, यही रीजन है कि मेल्टिंग पॉइंट इन आयोनिक बहुत हाई होता है, और यही कारण है कि आयोनिक कंपाउंड्स जो हैं वो हार्ड और ब्रिटल भी होते हैं. ठीक है. एनी क्वेश्चन सो फार? Just hold on one moment. My laptop needs a charger. Okay. Perfect. Now the properties of ionic compounds. So the general properties are like this. Because of the attractive force is strong, they are either in solid state or and are also hard. The compounds are brittle and then they can be easily broken when pressure is applied. Like for example, salt crystals. We all know salt crystals can easily be broken. Because the intermolecular force is high, large energy is required to overcome it. And that is why melting and boiling points of ionic compounds are very high. They are water soluble because the water molecules come into a particular manner around the ions and they are separated by the dissociation process. As a result, new attraction is established and it changes the original intermolecular attraction. The aqueous solution of ionic compounds are formed and they are not soluble in kerosene and petrol because new attractive force cannot be established in these solvents. So we all know salt can get easily dissolved in water and but they cannot be easily dissolved in kerosene or petrol. Okay? Now ionic compounds don't conduct electricity when in solid state, but it will conduct electricity when they are in liquid state because they are able to move very easily in a liquid state. So in a solid state, the ions don't move in that way. When current is passed through a solution of ions, then they simply move towards the oppositely charged electrode, and that is why they are electrically conductible at that stage. Now this is very important because electric conductivity is fused. When they are dissolved, these are called as electrolytes. आप सबको पता है अगर आपको weakness है या immediate energy चाहिए तो हम लोग शक्कर और नमक का पानी मिक्स करके पीते हैं या फिर ORS लेके पीते हैं. ये सारी चीजें क्या हैं? ये बेसिकली क्रिस्टल्स है जिनको पानी में मिक्स किया गया है और जिसके वजह से ये काफी एनर्जेटिक होती हैं और इसको हम लोग क्या कहते हैं? इलेक्ट्रोलाइट्स कहते हैं. क्या कहते हैं? इलेक्ट्रोलाइट्स. Now coming to metallurgy. The way metals are extracted from ores and how they are purified, that science is called as metallurgy. Now because metals are not are not in free state, since they are reactive, they're usually found in combined state like oxides, carbonates, sulfides, and nitrates. But the most unreactive metals are not affected by air, water, and other natural factors. So silver, gold, platinum occur in free state. Now compounds of metals that occur in nature along with impurities are called minerals. तो सिल्वर गोल्ड प्लैटिनम जो है वो फ्री स्टेट में मिलता है क्योंकि आप लोग को पता है वो जल्दी रिएक्ट नहीं करता. बट बाकी के मेटल्स जो है वो या ऑक्साइड, कार्बोनेट, सल्फाइड या नाइट्रेट फॉर्म में मिलते हैं. जिसमें इंप्यूरिटीज मिलती है उसको हम क्या कहते हैं? मिनरल्स कहते हैं. क्या कहते हैं? मिनरल्स. नाउ जिन मिनरल्स को हम इजीली अलग कर सकते हैं उनको ओर कहते हैं. उनके अंदर इंप्यूरिटीज होती है जैसे सॉइल, सैंड, रॉकी सब्सटेंस. इन इंप्यूरिटीज को गैंग कहा जाता है और ये मेटल्स को जब ओर से निकालते हैं उस प्रोसेस को सेपरेशन कहते हैं. और ये जो प्रोसेस है ये मेटलर्जी का सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट हिस्सा है. आप लोगों को पता है जमीन के अंदर माइंस होते हैं जहां से मेटल के ओर्स मिलते हैं, मिनरल के ओर्स मिलते हैं और गैंग जो है उसको वहां से अलग करके ओर्स को ऐसी जगह लेके जाया जाता है जहां पे मेटल्स एक्सट्रैक्ट किए जाते हैं. ये जो मेटल्स एक्सट्रैक्ट होते हैं ओर से ये प्योरेस्ट फॉर्म में होते हैं और इनको कई सारे अलग अलग मेथड से और प्यूरिफाई किया जाता है. इस पूरे प्रोसेस को मेटलर्जी कहते हैं. ठीक है. Now coming to basic principles of metallurgy. जो भी गैंग से ओर को सेपरेट करता है उसको कहते हैं concentration of ores. And in this process, concentration of the compound of the desired metal is increased. And the way to do that is depends on the physical properties of the metal. It also depends on how that metals react. So various factors are included and environmental pollution is also considered. So the separation first of all is based on gravitation by Wilfy-Tybal method. Using gravitation, powdered ore is put through water and that water creates lumps which is then put into a table which vibrates and it has slits. Now, through those small holes, gangue is separated, and whatever is remaining on that table falls into a separate area that has the concentrated ore. That is called the Wilfy table method. The other method is the hydraulic separation method. In this, there is a mill that is used, and there is a tapping that is like a grinding mill. So there is a tank which has water, and very small broken ore is put into that tank, and forceful jet of water is introduced. Now, because gangue are lighter, they will go through the top of the tank, and ore is because heavier, it will then be suspended below, from where it will be removed, and that is called hydraulic separation. The other is magnetic separation. Now, in a magnetic separation, what happens is they have an electromagnetic machine, and which is on a non-magnetic roller. So the roller itself is not magnetic. There is there is one part of the roller that is magnetic, one part is non-magnetic. Now, what happens is when the roller moves, whatever is magnetic gets stick to the roller and then gets separated, and whatever is non-magnetic goes into the other vessel, and that is called magnetic separation method. Finally, coming to froth flotation method. Now, this froth flotation method is dependent on two technologies, two properties: hydrophilic and hydrophobic. Hydrophilic means some metals that are that don't repel water, and hydrophobic means elements that repel water. Now, metal sulfides are hydrophobic, which means that they will repel water, and that gets wetted with oil. And because the gangue are hydrophilic, they get wetted with water. With this, you can separate certain ores using the froth flotation method. How is that done? They have a big tank which has an agitator. Agitator means something that keeps on moving. Now, there is an air supply on that tank which creates froth and bubbles. And you also have water and oil added to it. What will happen is whatever gets added to oil will rise to the froth, and then it will go into the froth, go into the point where they get collected into ores, and whatever gets connected with water will separate, and it will not float. Because they will not float, this is the reason why this is called the froth flotation process. Any questions so far? Okay. Now, leaching. So the metals that are least unreactive, like gold and silver, they use leaching in order to remove all the impurities. Leaching is a process when they are soaked into a certain solution and the ore dissolves in the solution, but the gangue does not dissolve, and therefore it is separated. Like bauxite, in the aluminium, from bauxite, when you get aluminium ore, aluminium ore dissolves in the solution of aqueous sodium hydroxide, and or aqueous sodium chloride, and that dissolves the alumina, and bauxite, whatever impurities are there, they are separated that way. Okay. So any questions so far? Okay, now we have extraction of metals, which is the most important part of this chapter. The whole point of reaction of how metals are created or separated, like how aluminium is found, or what is corrosion and everything. We will be doing this in the next lecture. Have your lunch and everything. We will meet back, let's say by 2 o'clock, if that's okay. All right. You will get another request. Any questions so far? Any questions, people? No? Okay, then. So I'll be seeing you soon. Thank you.